for your questions.
Hey guys, my name is Jared. Been playing StarCraft since it came out, and
Nice.
wanted to ask you guys, what direction were you really trying to go with the multiplayer, and what do you think the biggest game-changing unit is going to be?
Well, we're trying to make sure that we get more strategy into the game, as always, and that we get as diverse matchups as is humanly possible for us. We've obviously got a long way to go. This is not something a lot of pro gamers have looked at yet. This is something you guys are seeing for the first time. In terms of stuff I'm most scared of, we can almost just ask around. I don't know. I'm probably most nervous, I suppose, about the Replicant. That's a unit that, Protoss Ghosts, what's that going to do? I have no idea. We've tested it some, and it is a ton of fun, but it could just be horribly broken with no real easy way to fix it. We do have some balance tools we can use. We can always ratchet up the cost. Right now, it's not allowed to target massive units, so there's no sneaky making other guys battle cruisers or whatever. So we can make this a very expensive option. I guess my biggest fear about it would be, if it's too powerful, there might be scenarios where, say, Terran players simply refuse to build siege tanks versus Protoss, not because they don't want to, but because they're afraid they're going to get copied. And that would be a real loss. That would be, units leaving the game now, not entering the game. And our goal is always to make the matches as diverse as possible, to try to create scenarios where all 12 to 14 units are seeing play every chance we get. Did you want to answer which one you thought was scariest?
Yeah, for me, I think the Viper is very scary because the Terran players especially really heavily rely on siege tanks early on for their defense. And if you can really shut that down, that's pretty scary. Same goes for the Protoss. When they bring out, say, like 3 Colossi right now, it's a very powerful threat. But if you pull those 3 and just snipe it with your Hydras or something, that's very powerful as well. So, yeah, I think that's my...
We have some tools on that one as well. Obviously, the cost of those spells can be changed, and those spells can be replaced. The scary thing about the Viper, which I think David is worried about, is the core detection mechanic for the race is now on the Viper. So there's a limit at how expensive he can really be, right? At some point, its detection becomes too far away for the Zerg to really get at. Did I say Protoss? Anyway, too far away for the Zerg to really get at, which means we can't make it too expensive, which means at a certain point, if these spells do get too mighty, they'll need to be nerfed to oblivion, or more likely, changed for stuff that's a little bit simpler, a little less destructive.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How do you expect Heart of the Swarm to affect the tournament scene? Do you expect all the major tournaments like GSL and MLG to be exclusively Heart of the Swarm, or will there be like Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm? And what do you hope for?
Well, obviously we hope the game get balanced enough, and it's awesome and it's great and everyone loves it, and people are switching mid-data. That would be the fantasy. But the reality is it's up to you guys what you guys want to play. Wings of Liberty's not going anywhere, right? It's still there. And if the tournaments want to do it day 1, or if they want to do it at the end of year 1, or if they want to do it never, that's absolutely their option. We will totally continue to support Wings of Liberty to the best of our ability. But obviously we hope that we make something good enough that's a better gameplay experience that people want to come over. But if that's not the case, it's all up to you guys. It's all in your court.
Hi, I have a question about the replicator unit. And you said that it'll have all of the tech options or abilities of whatever unit you copy, even if that actual unit didn't have it in the first place. My question is, what happens if you copy an enemy race worker? Will you be able to build their buildings or etc.?
Right now, you can copy workers and build their units. And it's not as scary as it sounds when we try it, but with one exception, I guess, and that's the orbital command. Because it's got Mule and Scan, both of which are very powerful abilities. We're seeing a little bit mixed results in terms of this, but I guess what it comes down to is if you guys can just try it out and just give us more detailed feedback, that would definitely help us a lot because it's not a final unit, and we can make the change to not let it copy workers.
That's an easy fix for us to make, is no workers down the road.
I have one quick secondary question. In one of the videos, there was...
No second question!
I don't like that. Okay, fine.
Just catch us afterward, dude. Don't worry about it.
Sure.
Okay, speaking of the replicant, you can duplicate the orbital command.
No, you can duplicate SCV, build command center, supply depot, barracks, and then build an orbital command.
Okay, so you have to go through the worker first.
Yeah, totally. It's such an early unit that you get access to. It'd be so powerful to have that one. You know, if you work your way up to battle cruisers, I'm not sure how serious that is in a very competitive game, but the orbital command is right there, and it's pretty mighty.
Okay, thanks.
It sounds like the replicant is kind of on everyone's mind. I think the reason for that is you guys talk about making small changes, you know, increasing a range or decreasing. Do you feel like the replicant just opens up this can of worms that is going to be just out of your control depending on how people play with it?
When we talk about making small changes, that's for Wings of Liberty, because we don't really want to change how the game plays throughout just the course of the whole game. But new expansion is an opportunity for us to really add new things, add new strategies, all that stuff. So we want to try to really push strong things into the game. And it's pretty easy to just cut back and remove it if it's needed, stuff like that. So just going forward, we just want to figure out exactly how this functions. But we're not too worried about how strong it is right now at this point.
Yeah, I would say that with even half these changes, we're on a complete do-over on the balance, right? If we need to have this stuff, it's so tight now that if we make a change from, you know, range 5 to range 6 on the Immortal, and the pros are saying, hey, we're good. Oh my God, right? Like, we're so close in that sense. So even any of these new units are gonna, it's a total reset. It's a bunch of work for us. It's a whole new beta. It's the whole new process all over again.
Mix it up, keep it new, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Back in July on the BattleNet forum, I posted a thread called Warp Prism Shields Instead of Health, and what I proposed was switching the shield and health stats on the Warp Prism to give it a reusability factor. It could sustain damage and still be usable. And you guys went ahead and just alt-right buffed the shields, which is terrific. And I was wondering if and how that's affected the use of the Warp Prism in the pro circuit.
We definitely tried to get feedback from the forums, and I guess this is one of those things where we listen to you guys' feedback and just buff the unit. And in this case specifically, we wanted to buff it because it was a unit that was almost never seeing play, but we saw a lot of potential in it. So after we buffed it, we were seeing a lot of usage, especially on the pro streams. Maybe not as much in tournaments, even though just last weekend or the week before, I saw one of the Protoss players use it against a Terran player, and it was very effective, I think. So yeah, I mean, like, we don't want to see a completely like new thing or whatever, but we just wanted to encourage just this use, and I think we're seeing a lot more usage of this unit, so we're pretty happy with the change that we made.
Thank you.
It is. Hello.
Welcome back.
How you guys doing?
Good.
I was wondering if you guys were concerned at all about having too many options. There's already a lot out there, and you seem to be adding a lot. And probably the majority of these people that play this game are in the lower leagues and don't really understand what's going on right now. And all these options, are you guys concerned about overwhelming other people?
Yes. Wait, all right. So yeah, totally. Obviously, it's always a concern for us that we just have too much in the game. We're looking to add stuff, too, for the more casual players. I think, you know, the changes we're proposing for the Thor would be a good example of this. I don't think that's a unit that's ever going to see play, you know, on the main screen, though it might, on occasion, come out. But it's something that requires right now armory, and it requires, what's the other requirement on that one right now? The fusion core, thank you. It also requires the fusion core. So it's a very high-end unit, but it's a very easy unit to use. And we felt like the mothership was failing in this respect. It was something that was meant to be for the more casual player to own his buddies in that 4v4, and yet it was something that required a lot of clicks for him to use. It was something that was very vulnerable to enemy fire, ultimately for its cost. So we're trying to do stuff along these lines. But yeah, well, you bring up a fair enough point, right? Like, we could totally be in a position right now where we're adding stuff that's a little too complicated, a little too difficult. It might make it even harder, but at the same time, we want to try to add more strategy. So we're going to try to walk the line and see where it takes us.
I'm sure you'll do fine.
We'll
Thank
see.
you.
Hi guys, I had a quick question about spawn larva compared to chrono boost compared to mules. I was wondering if you guys think mules were inherently like imbalanced compared to spawn larva and chrono boost. Like, say when a Terran expands to the gold base and drops all their mules at a gold base, do you think it's a little bit too powerful compared to Zerg and Protoss's options?
I guess using it on the gold is a little stronger than the normal, but because it comes in at a mid or late game situation, we don't think it's too problematic. But if it ever gets to the point that we do think that, or if the players think that and we look into it further, then we can always fix that pretty easily, I think. And I think the strength of the mule is not that, but the ability to just save up your mana and use all the mules at once, which like with Spawn Larva you can't really do. And in terms of that, I don't think, it doesn't have to be exactly symmetrical per race, what they get. So Terrans do have it a little easier on that side, but on the flip side, Zerg actually has an easier time, say like producing a bunch of units at once. You can build like 30 units a lot quicker with multiple hatcheries Haki to 1 Haki versus trying to build 3 different units out of 3 different building types of the Terran. So we do try to go for those asymmetric options.
Right, but we've heard that feedback, and I'll just take it again as something for us to sort of watch going forward.
Thank you.
Hey guys, Clutch with Major League Gaming here. Woo! StarCraft 2 has exploded as an esport. Thank you so much for creating such an amazing game.
Especially at MLG.
Now, with Heart of the Swarm coming out, are there any concerns about releasing an expansion to Wings of Liberty during a Pro Circuit season?
Well, again, our hope is that you guys will make the smart decision and decide when to move over, if you even want to move over. But that you guys will look at it and go, hey, the guy, our pro players, whoever they are, have had a chance to practice and play. They're ready to go. We're going to try a tournament and see how it goes. Or, you know what, these guys aren't ready yet. We're all still enjoying Wings. We're going to hang on to Wings a little bit longer. We went through a little bit of a similar process, obviously, from StarCraft to Brood War, but esports was not, what it is today at that time. So it is sort of forging new ground for us. Can we do this? How should we do it? What should you guys do? I have a lot of confidence in the community at the end of the day to make the right call as to how to show it. Because at the end of the day, yeah, we made a game that's esports friendly, but we didn't make esports. Y'all made esports, right? This was something the community put together and built for us all to enjoy. Seriously, applause to you guys. And so that's why I feel like you guys will make the right call as to when to make that move. But we'll definitely be putting out builds. We'll have a beta up, obviously. We'll be able to get your guys' feedback as to how you want to do it, when you want to do it, and then you guys will make the final call on a tournament-by-tournament basis when and if you want to make that change.
Thank you.
Hello, I just had a quick question. Will the Shredder's attack be nullified around your own workers? Will it be nullified around your allies' units? And will it be repairable?
Yes, it will be turned off by your own workers. Yes, it will be repairable. Yes, if your allies enter the radius, it will shut off. It needs to work entirely alone or with other Shredders. And what you couldn't see in that video, because it wasn't that obvious, is those fields also do not overlap damage. They're like Psystorm in the sense that if you're in a field, you're taking damage. If you're in 2 fields, you're still taking 1 set of damage. So you can stack them up, so they're hard to destroy and move through, but at no time do you, if you put 17 together, you do 17x damage. But you do have to use them alone, no matter what.
But it does attack both planes, so it's very powerful and all around.
Pretty mighty right now.
My question is about the use of the Shredder as a harassment unit. Because earlier today, a guy dropped the Shredder behind my mineral lines, and then all my workers are gone. I think it would be especially complicated like for people that are not very skilled, like myself, because you are not looking at the minimap all the time and you don't have the APM to move all your workers away. So
yeah.
What are your thoughts about that?
I'm sorry. That's a rough first experience, I'll tell you what. Yes, totally concerned. We have some tools we can use to adjust that. Specifically, the deploy time is something we can adjust. We could also try adding some very distinctive sounds to it, so even players who are not able to watch the minimap have some clues that this is happening or about to happen. But it could be a deal killer. That could be a reason why this unit down the road simply doesn't have the strength to make it, because, from bronze to gold, that's what you do. You bring in Shredders, you drop them, and you ruin his day. But we'll keep an eye on it going forward. Thanks for playing it, though, for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, well, on that note, I really like what you guys are doing with the Nexus energy, because it seems like in some parts of the game in certain matchups, and Chrono Boost isn't useless, but it does lose its utility. So on that note, whatever the thing, it's the psi cannons that you put on your building, obviously that's designed to prevent cheese. But what about using it as cheese? Like, it seems like it might be like really stupid pseudo cannon rushes.
Maybe not even might be. I watched Day 9 do that to Artosis last night, or was it to JP? I think it was to JP. It was hilarious. Well, no, for me, not so much for JP, I think. Yeah, so totally. Definitely a concern. We've tried it at different tech levels. We just recently made it gateway required. And it could be something that just dies in a fire, that just has too much of a problem. So we've tried it with a limited range. When we had a very limited range, the Protoss were doing all kinds of weird things to keep their buildings in range, and their bases were getting all twisted and weird, and it was very awkward. When we had a very large range, like say a range of 20 on it, they didn't do that anymore. But at the same time, since the range was often off the screen, nobody even knew the thing had a range, which was also not a great new user experience. So the kind of thing, it makes the unit feel complicated and awkward again. So I'm not sure what the right answer on that is at the end of the day, whether there's a range, whether we need to bump up the tech a little bit, or we need to put a bullet into it and say, too bad, that's not going to work. But yeah, right now, if you get some, couple of buildings in your base, you could be in a little bit of trouble right now. Another option we've discussed is making it only cast maybe only on gateways or only on the Nexus or something along those lines. So it's really not something that's easy to drop in the enemy base. But it's totally fair feedback, and we'll definitely keep a watch on it going forward.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for playing.
Hi guys. You mentioned how one of the Thor's weaknesses was Mutalisk's ability to just magic box against them, negating the splash damage. So why is that any different versus the Tempest now?
Oh, I think the Tempest has a much larger splash radius, first of all. And you will hopefully, because they're air units and they're coming in a late stage of the game, you can have multiple of them. When the Thor comes out, you really need, you're in trouble right now, and you might have one, maybe two. That won't be the case with the Tempest. The Tempest is designed to deal with that 30 to 40 to 50 Mutalisk case, so it'll be a very different scenario which he comes into play.
And another huge difference between the two units is that the Thor only really counters Mutalisks, but the Tempest actually counters every air unit in the game, as long as they're grouped up. So even if the other players building Corruptors or other units, they're still really good, so you won't really build one or two of these guys when you build them. I think you would just naturally build more of them because they're more powerful at just wiping out all your overlords or whatever if you win the air-to-air battle.
Well, as with the Thor, if you build too many, you're setting yourself up for some other kind of counter, right? That's just going to wreck your day.
Thanks.
We have time for several more questions.
Hi. In the WoW, we really quickly saw a change to AoE to make it the total cap on damage. Will we ever see that in StarCraft? More importantly, with the EMP, just keep the range itself the same, but just have it only be able to take 500 energy total.
I'm not a big fan of that solution for StarCraft. I like what it's trying to accomplish. My concern would be that it would feel very, very random when you do it, what you actually get for it. For example, I EMP a bunch of Zealots and an Immortal. I have something I want to have happen there. I want that Immortal to take a bunch of shield loss. But if it caps at 500 damage and all the Zealots take the hits instead, and I'm sitting there like, why didn't she hit the Immortal? That's what I wanted, right? And so I feel like it's just a little too random for us to really be effective that way. I think ultimately, nerfs to the ability, changes to the radius, changes to the range, changes how much damage it does. These are all very effective tools that we can use to attack that ability if we need to do so. That won't really create that kind of scenario where it feels kind of random. You don't really know what's happening.
Plus, what you're suggesting actually has a very similar effect to just nerfing the radius, but it doesn't have that problem. Our solution actually doesn't have that problem, the randomness problem that Dustin mentioned. So I think you'll actually get a similar effect that you're looking for with this change.
We have time for one or two more questions.
Hello again. I have a question regarding the happenstance to what was going to be the Twilight Archon, and now we find ourselves wasting a very valuable High Templar and a more valuable Dark Templar, in my opinion, to get pretty much the same thing. And I think by adding these two units together, which are strong, you would think you would get some sort of a different look to the Archon instead of this uniform blandness that, you get lost by doing it. You might as well just choose two High Templar instead of wasting the Dark Templar.
Sure, no, I understand. So if we have ideas for a new Archon, we'll definitely do it. We don't want just another mover and shooter Archon. We've got that guy, right? So if we come along with a new spellcaster or new abilities that would make sense on a kind of a big, tough ground guy, we'll definitely take consider it. And I'll take your feedback on this that, hey, I'd like my Twilight or Dark Archon back. Absolutely.
Hey guys, thanks for the change to EMP. And I wanted to ask about just AoE in general. It feels like mid-late game, because your units clump up so well in SC2, that so much of the strategy revolves around your ability to land and field those good AoEs. And are you happy with that? Do you think AoE is just too good?
Well, I can say one thing, and maybe you can follow up, David. It is one of the biggest challenges we've had ultimately when comparing Brood War to StarCraft 2. We've nerfed things like Psystorm again and again and again in a desperate attempt to deal with this issue, even as the community is like, why are you nerfing Psystorm? And this is the reason why we're doing it. Okay, you guys don't usually talk like that. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge for us, and it's something we'll continue to look at, going forward. It does feel pretty good to watch it on esports, and it can be fun to play, but I hear what you're saying, that maybe it's a little across the line. Did you want to add to that?
I mean, we were getting this feedback a lot, especially towards the beginning when we first released the game. But these days, looking at tournaments, I really don't find game lengths to be too short or anything. I think faster games are pretty good, around 10 to 15 minutes. Longer games, I've seen like 40-minute, 50-minute games too. So in terms of that, I don't think units are dying too fast to splash, and what we have is not too bad.
Well, I'm just going to dogpile here. Another sort of, from my level of play, right, I'm sort of playing at the low diamond level of play. What you're saying is absolutely true, right? Like, I don't have the ability to easily split my units except on my very best day. Like, if I'm really rocking it, and it's a Saturday morning, and I'm all fresh, right, then I can split my units effectively. So it's sort of a challenge for us, because the pros are able to split their units effectively, and it looks awesome when they do it, and it really puts a lot of skill into the game. But at my level of play, those Psystorms or those fungal growths are pretty critical to the game. So, yeah, and you're in the same spot, I guess. So, yeah, it's a bit of a challenge for us, and it's definitely something I think we'll keep watching going forward.
Okay, thanks, guys.
That is all the time that we have for today. Please give our panelists a round of applause.
Thank you, everybody.
Please join us coming up next.